And to my panel, where there are no political labels, you are banned from using any political labels or cliches in your argument, which includes terms like right-wing, alt-right, far-right, lefty, hard left, social, all that stuff. If you use them, it's $1 in the golden swear tin and you lose your point. Joining me now for this discussion, no holds barred, is the no-labelled Michael Koziel, the no-labelled James MacPherson, and from London, the unlabelled Sophie Corcoran. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Let's get stuck into this. A new report has found that children are less fit than their parents were at their age, but it's not because children are glued to their screens or their iPads or because of lockdowns. Nope, it's because of climate change. Have a listen.
A new study showing how climate change, specifically higher temperatures, is making our children more inactive and more obese.
Michael, can we blame obesity on climate change? In fact, you ran slower in the Sydney to Surf race than last year by a minute. Was that climate change?
It was, well, look, I think it was probably, it might have been obesity, but I don't think it was climate change. I'll have to work on my fitness for next year. No, look, I think, I had a look at this. I think what this study may have been trying to say is that for people who are overweight, climate change may, rising temperatures will actually make it more difficult for them to cope. Obviously, if you're really overweight, might sweat a lot already. It's probably more difficult if the temperature goes up. I think it was reported as saying that climate change was causing obesity, which may or may not have been a misinterpretation of what the study was actually trying to say. You can't rely on us for anything. We're no good. I think that may have been what was going on. I think it would be a stretch, as I believe you're insinuating, to say that climate change was actually causing children to be more obese.
Sophie, what did you make of that particular story there? We can't hear you. Sorry, Sophie, we lost the sound there. There we go. We got you now.
Are we just going to complete? Sorry, I was going to say, it made me rage, Rowan, because are we just going to completely forget the fact that we forced children to stay inside for over a year, force them to do school through a laptop, chained up parks and playgrounds, banned grassroots sports, and all we had open here, and I know it's the same in Canada as well, was the McDonald's. That's all the kids had to do in lockdown. They couldn't go out and play with their friends. They had to sit home and eat in crisps. And now all of a sudden, the people that cheerleaded those policies are now coming out here and saying obesity is because of climate change. It's not. And even if it wasn't lockdown, that's what exacerbated the problem. It's the fact that, kids are having iPads and technology. All of our food is completely processed. It's got nothing to do with climate change at all, but they're just trying to peddle a new narrative to, play Project Fear with. But they didn't care months ago, Rowan. They didn't care about obesity then, did they? No?
James.
It makes you wonder, is there anything climate change is not responsible for? I mean, it reminds you of the dark ages where people used to say, the devil made me do it. Well, it's the climate change that made the kids fat. The Los Angeles Almanac has recorded temperatures since 1878. And in 1878, the annual average temperature was 16.6 degrees Celsius. In 2021, it was 18.6 degrees Celsius. You can't tell me in 143 years, with a temperature rise of around 2 degrees, that's caused childhood obesity. The only people that would believe that, Rowan, are people who've had too much sun. Climate change.
There you go, climate change. So is climate change responsible for anything at the moment, Michael?
Probably global warming to an extent, but I don't know if we want to get into that.
They're the same thing, aren't they? Okay, I'm confused
no,
now.
they're slightly different.
Okay, they're different. Okay, what's the difference?
But I don't think climate change, as claimed, is probably responsible for making kids fat. I think to add to what Sophie was saying, don't forget that we also, in some states, close school playgrounds.
Exactly.
So I'm not doing a very good job of disagreeing with you tonight, but I just thought we should note that.
Okay, well let's go to another controversial topic. This week, the transgender clinic Tavistock in the UK was shut down because it harms children. Quote, it harms children. And the doctor responsible has been accused of harming children. Yet here's the ABC not reporting this story. Have a listen to Paul Barry admitting that the ABC doesn't report the story.
And now, to a story that's been reported around the world, but you won't see on the ABC.
England overhauls medical care for transgender youth.
Tavistock transgender clinic shut down by NHS after review finds it is not safe for children.
So, we asked the ABC why the closure of the London clinic and the debate around gender dysphoria treatment was seemingly of no interest. It told us
The focus of our coverage is what is happening in Australia, and Australian practices differ significantly to those that were in Tavistock. The change in Britain's model could certainly form part of future coverage where it's relevant.
Okay, well, let's kick off, Sophie, because it's a British story, as that's the ABC's excuse. Is it being reported in Britain, this story?
Yes, it was widely reported, but I feel like we're celebrating too early, Rowan, because yes, it was shut down and it needed to be shut down. And the thing is with this is that now over 1,000 families are now going to sue the NHS because of the Tavistock clinic. And that is just the beginning. When those cases start to succeed, we're going to see more and more and more. And this, in my opinion, actually could end the NHS. Now, we can celebrate that and say, thank God, we're finally getting justice. This place has finally been closed. But there is a catch here, Rowan, and that is the fact that they've closed the Tavistock, but they're opening 8 new regional gender clinics. So there's going to be more gender clinics, and they're going to be closer. And the other thing is that our NHS is publicly funded. So these lawsuits, the only people that are actually going to pay for their failures are not the people involved, but the taxpayer ourselves.
Wow. Great
me,
point.
Others, other Brits.
Michael, the transgender, a year ago, if it said transgenderism is going to lead to harming children, I'd have been shouted and screamed at, you're a this, you're a that. Is there a danger that transgenderism is harming children in this country, in Australia?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a really complicated area, and so if there's any topic I don't want to be putting money into the jar on, it's this one, because I think it is serious, and I think it is, for kids who are going through this, and families who are going through this, it's a really difficult thing. I don't think it's anything that, it's not something that people would kind of elect to want to experience, really. It's a difficult thing, and sure. I think society makes it more difficult for them, and we shouldn't do that. On the other hand, clearly with any medical decision, there have to be processes, there has to be consent, and it has to be informed consent. And, I did a bit of writing on the Tavistock case a year and a half ago when it was first wrapped over the knuckles by a court in the UK, and I think it is worth writing about. I don't think there's some conspiracy at the ABC just because they didn't do a story on this occasion. And the thing that I kind of took issue with Paul Barry, I think it's fine to say the ABC should have written about this. It is an interesting, important case, and we should cover it. But, this idea that, the ABC has written a lot of pro-trans stories, so they should, knock up a few anti-trans stories, I don't really think it's a very sophisticated way of approaching it.
I find it incredible, Michael, that you'd say you're confident that it's not harming children. We've got 1,000 families in the UK who are suing the NHS in a class action saying this has harmed our children. I do agree with you, it is serious. And so we should proceed with the utmost caution and care rather than this gender-affirming notion that we have where we automatically affirm the idea that any child has that they might be the opposite gender to which their biology presents. So I don't know how you can say with any confidence that children are not being harmed. And the fact that the ABC didn't think it worth reporting, that the executive producer at Radio National said, well, it's not relevant for Australian audiences. Well, just a month ago, the ABC reported a story on what the Russian invasion means for LGBTQ people in Ukraine. How is that relevant to Australian audiences? And yet 1,000 families suing the NHS over a medical procedure that we're endorsing here is somehow not relevant. You can't tell me that's not deliberately trying to push this to the side.
Fantastic response. We've got to leave it there. Thank you so much, Michael, James and Sophie. We'll see you again next week.